If you look closely on the front of the car, you can actually see that this opening is not really symmetric. So I kind of thought, well, let me build a new front grille for this, because the one that was on the car was damaged. And building a new front grille would have worked out, and actually I started doing it, as you can see with the little aluminum patches. But then I realized that it's going to be so obvious that this is not symmetric. And that's most likely because the car had damage before, that it's going to look not right. So at the end, I decided to fix the old grille, put a new maze inside, and then install it, because that's going to cover up some of this asymmetric form here. So here we have the front grille, and that's the original one, but it has a bit of damage here and there, and I need to straighten it up and then install a new maze in it. You probably will see as well that the chrome in certain places is really no longer what it used to be. But overall, it is not too bad. It has a few dents, so I'm going to try to knock those out gently. Now I could buy a new one, but then again, once you're on the racetrack, it gets chipped quite quickly. So I think we're almost there. Yeah. I think for the rest, it's looking all right. Let's see, maybe here a little bit. Yeah. Right, so this is looking good. So I'm going to trial fit it, and then we will install the maze. I knocked out the dents as much as I could, so now it's time to polish it while we can. And I'm going to using a mill for that. I have a rough wheel and I have a fine wheel. I'm not going to deal with the rough wheel. The rough wheel, you would typically apply a very corrosive paste to it, polishing paste. And after that, you would move on to the middle one, which is kind of purple. And then finally, for the fine work, you would be using the white one. And as you can see, I've been using the white one quite a bit. Now, I like to clean the wheels before every job, and for that I'm using very abrasive paper. I think this is a 40, and then I will apply the white compound, and then we start polishing it. So let's start. So here's our chrome grille, and that looks now quite all right. So this is the maze we will install. And there's a couple of studs around on the edges. Just need to push it over it. Now the maze I'm using is stainless steel, just for clarity. And I think this is about it. I will have to put the bars up, but then stretch some of the little holes of the maze to put the bolts through. I believe this one is from the top. Now this one should go on easily. No, wrong way. No, it's the right way. Like so. That should go on like this. Shouldn't be too hard. And then the other one is going to go on the bottom side. So let me put this together, and then you'll see how this ends up. So the maze is now installed, and it was just a little bit of pushing at the inside, but this is the inside, just if you wonder how that looks like. We got a bar on the bottom side, we've got a bar on the top side, And now we can actually just fit it to the car, and that should be okay. We lock it down to the frame, those 3 locations. So let's see if it fits. So here it is installed. So that front grille turned out to be not too bad. I expected it a bit to be more difficult, but it still fits reasonable, and it's masking up the asymmetric shape of the opening, because most likely because of previous repairs. I see that I have a small opening here at the bottom side, but it doesn't really disturb me, and I can still push it still a bit more backwards when I tighten up that bolt, which I haven't done because I still need to work on the electrical cabling when I have my new lights, because this light is still broken and I'm having 2 new ones ordered. On this side it's okay, but there's a little bit of a gap as well. But then again, this is a race car. So this is our old steering wheel, and this is the one we are not going to be using. Instead, we're going to use a new steering wheel. Now the problem is that the boss, which is sitting on the steering rod, is having 7 bolts, which is actually that diameter. And that the new steering wheel is only having 6 bolts. And you can see that the diameter to align those holes is slightly different. So that is a bit of an issue. So therefore, I actually bought an aluminum block, and I bought 2, just in case I make a mistake, which I will use to create a converter between the boss with the 7 holes and the steering wheel on the other side with the 6 holes. So this is what we're going to do now on the lathe. And by the way, if you're wondering how expensive this is, a solid block of aluminum like this, which is 90 millimeters and 50 thick, runs you about 12 euros.
Often I just have ideas in my head, and sometimes it's handy trying to explain it to other people if you make a little sketch. So what I'm drawing up here is exactly what I'm going to build out of this aluminum block, and we'll do this on the lathe. Now my lathe is a very cheap lathe, it's a very old one, it's a hobby lathe, nothing really special, but it does work. Now if you have a friend, you can ask your friend to do it, but I will do it myself.
So here's the sketch of what we're trying to make. So I'm no expert on the lathe whatsoever. Here's our aluminum block. And I'm going to put it in place. And we'll try to use the lathe all right. So let's mark it up. So at 1 centimeter. As you can see, this is 5. So that's where I want to have it. Now this is a very old lathe and a hobby lathe, so it's nothing professional, but it will do the job. Now let's see if we can create our marking. There's our marking. It's right there. So I'm going to let it run. And this is going to take a little bit of time. And once we're a little bit further, I will show you the result. This is the adapter that we just created on the lathe, and as you remember, we got it out of a block of aluminum like this one. And the adapter is without holes for the moment, but we still have to make those. I also made a centering ring so that the part of the steering can fit snug into it. So now this is properly centered. And on the other side, we're going to attach the steering wheel. And also I made sure we have a little rim here where the steering wheel is going to be centered on. So the steering wheel is going to go up like this. And then in the middle, we have the little L-tag sign. So I still need to drill the holes, and then we can assemble everything. So if I'm going to connect the adapter to the original part, there is obviously a couple of holes we need to drill. But also I have to have longer bolts. I already have pre-drilled some of those holes, as you can see. And now I'm having longer bolts that can go through it. However, I will not use them as bolts as such. I will use them as studs, so I'm going to chop off the head. And that way we can then properly install it. But before doing so, I also need to change the thread inside. So I already have drilled everything out and I already tapped in new thread, except this one here. Because I'm using an M5, which is a bit different than the original threading that was on there. And the bolts that I had in this were really not long enough. And you don't want to take any chances with your steering wheel. I mean, this is your safety. I'm just going to turn them all in and then see where I need to cut them, because I want them to be of the same length, right? So have a look how that will look like. It's going to stick through this much. So that should be more than enough space for a nut to go on. So as you notice, I have cut off the heads of these bolts and I'm putting some Loctite up so they don't come loose. And I'm using a counter nut to turn these studs into place. I've drilled all the holes and now it's time to put some thread inside. This is the side where the steering wheel will come on. So I'm going to do all 6 of them and then we will start to install things on the car. Right, so let's have a look on how it looks like. Of course, I got to make sure that the steering wheel is straight. And let's see. So that doesn't look like it's straight, so we need to turn it around a bit. I know I have the wheel straight, and this is the straight marker, so that's the way it's supposed to be. All right, so this is how it looks like. I still have to bolt it down on the sides, and of course we have to put in all the bolts for the steering wheel, but I can't do that before I lock this one down. So all I need to do now is lock down all these nuts. And here we have the finished installation of the steering wheel. This is just working just fine for me. I know it's a little bit more forward, about 50 millimeters, but I'm a short guy, so for me that just fits right. And I think this is a big improvement on the cart compared to the steering wheel that we had in there before. So thank you for viewing, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye-bye.